earlier video chats, we've spoken about the importance of the first 2 weeks after birth in establishing breastfeeding and lactation. In video chats 2 and 3, we spoke about the hospital breastfeeding experience and surviving the first week at home. In our 4th video chat, we talked about some common maternal conditions that can affect breastfeeding and maybe cause problems in the first 2 weeks after birth. For this video chat, we're going to focus on the baby and what happens when the baby does not feed well at the breast in the first 2 weeks. When babies feed well, or effectively as we call it, at the breast in the early days after birth, they do 2 important things. First, they drink enough milk to avoid common newborn problems that you see, such as jaundice, low blood sugar, and too much weight loss. But second, their feeding has another purpose. It stimulates the mother's breasts and the milk-producing hormones to make more milk. So when babies do not feed well at the breast, both processes, not just the baby's drinking enough milk, are affected. Healthcare providers typically watch babies very closely to make sure they drink enough milk. However, less attention may be given to making sure the mother's milk supply is protected. If babies don't feed well at the breast, mothers may need to use a breast pump to stimulate lactation during this critical time period. So this video chat focuses on understanding and protecting the milk supply when babies do not feed well at the breast. Not breastfeeding well can mean different things depending upon the baby. For example, some healthy full-term babies are sleepy for the first day or 2 after birth and feed fewer than the recommended 8 to 12 times. Late preterm babies, those born between 34 and 36 completed weeks of gestation, and early term babies, those born between 37 and 38 weeks of gestation, are different. Because oftentimes, babies that are greater than 35 weeks of gestation may remain in the maternity room with the mother and be expected to breastfeed as if they were healthy full-term babies. Although these babies are healthy, they're still premature with respect to feeding effectively. They may not wake up regularly for their feedings. They slip off of the nipple over and over again and fall asleep at the breast before drinking enough milk. Still, other babies may wake up frequently, try to feed, but do not get a good latch on the breast and do not drink enough milk, nor do they stimulate the breast sufficiently. The maternity lactation expert can help you recognize ineffective feeding, so be sure to ask for help, especially if your baby falls into one of these categories. For babies, giving extra milk solves the problem of not breastfeeding well, but it doesn't fix the other part of the problem, which is stimulating your breasts and hormones to make more milk. Only effective feeding by your baby or the use of a hospital-grade, multi-user electric breast pump with suction patterns like the ones used by healthy full-term babies can do this. It really is hard to know exactly when to use a breast pump if a newborn baby is not feeding well, and you may get different information from different lactation care providers. For example, instead of breast pump use, you may be encouraged to spend more time holding your baby in skin-to-skin care. Or you may be encouraged to hand express your milk so that it can be fed to your baby. While there is nothing wrong with these recommendations, they cannot replace the needed suction stimulation from a baby or a suitable breast pump. In fact, you can hold your baby skin to skin while pumping, and you can use hand expression after you pump. But you should not do these things instead of pumping. A good rule of thumb is that your breast should receive about 120 minutes or 2 hours each day of effective stimulation during the maternity hospitalization, either by your baby or the pump. Sleeping at the breast without sucking or slipping off of the nipple over and over do not count as effective stimulation when you're counting this 120 minutes. In most instances, early pumping will be temporary, serving as a bridge to make sure that your milk supply is established when your baby does wake up and begin to feed effectively and needs to drink enough milk. Most healthy full-term babies wake up from their sleepiness by the second or third day after birth, and you may not need to use the breast pump after that. However, if your baby is late preterm or early term, chances are that you will need to use the breast pump some of the time until your baby's expected birth date or even a week or two later. These babies have to outgrow their ineffective feeding, and the pump does the work of removing milk effectively until they do. Your late preterm or early term baby will begin to drink enough milk because the pump is creating extra milk that flows easily. Eventually, your baby will take over the job of regulating the milk supply, and you can stop pumping. However, until then, you should use a hospital-grade multi-user electric breast pump to remove your milk as completely and as quickly as possible. A final note of caution about early breast pump use. Some mothers start using the breast pump in the first 2 weeks after birth, even when their babies feed well. The mothers say that they want to be on the safe side of having enough milk or want to build a good milk supply for when they return to work. There is plenty of time to do this after your milk supply is established to specifically meet your baby's needs. I have personally helped several mothers who started pumping too early and went on to have an oversupply of milk, sometimes for weeks or even months into lactation. And this was accompanied by the frequent bouts of plug ducts and mastitis that go along with an oversupply of milk. So we'll end our video chat with 3 takeaway messages. Number 1, some babies may not breastfeed effectively, especially if they are born late preterm or early term. Number 2, a hospital-grade multi-user electric breast pump with suction patterns like the ones used by healthy breastfeeding full-term babies will stimulate your breasts and the milk-making hormones to continue milk production until your baby does feed effectively. Number 3, do not use the breast pump to make extra milk for returning to work during these first 2 weeks. There'll be plenty of time to make extra milk later on.